The India was once ruled by the British Empire. The British Empire had been ruling Indian subcontinent for almost 200 years from 1757 to 1947. During the ruling, the British government became the worst nightmare of the people of British India. The government treated Indian people like animals, tortured and dominated. However, racism with Indian people rose too high. It started in 1757 when British East India Company defected Sirajuddaulah, the Nawab of Bengal. They started torturing right after setting the colony. Honorable Speaker, India was under British colonial rule from 1857 to 1947. There were many changes in economies, politics, and various other circles of life that happened in India's life and country in general during British colonial rule. The British started to take raw materials for low cost from India, and then they sold the finished goods for high rates in the world market, even in India market. As a result, the handmade goods lost its customers, cause poor market means poor economic growth. Now, let's know what happened in India's economy before and after starting the British imperialism. Honorable Speaker, if we look at the page of history, then we can find that China's economy was the biggest in the world by 1820. Indian GDP grew up to Chin GDP at the period of 7,000 to 1820. But Indian GDP decreased by about 20% at the period of 1820 to 1870. So in a nutshell, India was a downward trend when British arrived. Now I think our government friends are trying to find some boon from this destructive economy. My dear friends in government side, history says that we are living in peace and harmony before the British came. They came, saw, and destroyed our harmony by using divide and rule policy. They used divide and rule formula to make Indians fight with each other.
The opposition mentioned, the opposition member mentioned that the British divided India. Is the opposition even aware that if the British never ruled us, if the British never came to India to conquer us, India would have been a combination of 5 states, which would have been divided into 100 princely states, fighting, having petty wars against each other with no unity, with no industrialization, no democracy, no sense of the actual world. The British came into India, as said...
excuse me. What's your question?
So how can the opposition members say that they divided India, which actually harmed us?
Honorable Speaker, British had done everything only for their own betterment, not to develop India. Honorable Speaker, the British showed the first stage of communism between Hindus and Muslims. This would become a huge strong tea by the passage of time and divide our nation into India and Pakistan as a sweet fruit. Millions of people had died for this division. Honorable Speaker, they gave birth to the corruption in our country by giving birth to some Indians in order to make those people help them to know the weak points of Indian rulers. There was a famine in 1866 in India. Almost 330 million of people had affected, and over 1 million of people had died in eastern India because Britain encouraged Indian farmers to grow cash crops, not to grow food grains. So, my dear friends in government side, how can we find the boon of British imperialism if they bound us to import British goods from Britain and not to buy their own goods from India? Isn't it the biggest curse for India? Hopefully, will provide us a logical answer. India soon became dependent on British due to the colonization, and dependence on British imported goods. Was it a boon for India? How funny you're still arguing with that. Honorable Speaker, let's look at an example. If a terrorist utilized a knife to commit a murder and left it anywhere, and suddenly a general public came and used the knife in his household work, then what will you say? Is that the knife good or bad? Similarly, British used railways and communication systems for their own purpose. As they couldn't take it with them, they left it for us. And we are making ourselves happy with this. How funny. Honorable Speaker, British government set up high tax which could not be paid by craftsmen, which led to decline of handicrafts, which had attained worldwide fame earlier. At the end of my speech, I would like to say British had done everything only for their own betterment, not to develop India. I repeat, British had done everything only for their own betterment, not to develop India. So, Honorable Speaker, it's too clear to understand everyone that the British imperialism in India is not a boon. But at the same time, we are also saying that the British imperialism in India is not an absolute curse. We are just saying the impact of British imperialism.
Now, I would request the Honourable Member of the Treasury Bench to present her arguments.
Good morning, leaders, members of the Cabinet and members of the Parliament. I would like to remind the Parliament that today we're proposing that the motion that British imperialism is a boon on India and not a curse. We are gathered here to prove that it is a boon in the present. We are gathered here to prove that the British improved India's future. We must prove that their rule in India is blooming India into a flower today. Parliament, we need to see the bigger picture here. Today, our views are against the British colonization, but I must point out that if the British never colonized us, if India was left to itself, if India would, if they never came to